Hello, everyone, and welcome to Navigating the Financial Year End with Aimee. Over here, this webinar is going to be all about essential tips for UK businesses, and Aimee is going to be our speaker for the day. She is a partner with Zoho Books, and she heads the Ultra Accountancy company in the UK. So here's a quick thing about Aimee. She's a director at Ultra Accountancy Limited. She's a fully qualified certified accountant. She is completely all about Zoho Books, and she deals with service-based businesses. So I'm going to quickly hand it off to Aimee. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can drop it in the Q&A box. My colleague Chandru from the team will be handling it. And stay tuned towards the end of the session, as Aimee will also be dropping a special checklist at the end of it.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Aimee from Ultra Accountancy. As Gina nicely introduced myself, I'm a chartered certified accountant, director here at Ultra Accountancy. We've been using Zoho for perhaps about 8 years now. So Ultra Accountancy, as I mentioned, is a chartered certified accountancy based in the UK, in Wakefield, West Yorkshire. Been using Zoho predominantly. 90% of our clients are on Zoho Books, so we really know this software off the back of our hands. So lots and lots of our clients, they're service-based businesses, so limited company service-based businesses. So we handhold those with their accounts, make sure that they're happy with their bookkeeping and VAT returns and journals and things. So in the UK, predominantly, what we tend to find is lots and lots of limited companies have a 31st of March year end. So this is really navigating what's coming. You're using Zoho Books. What do we need to really look out for? Okay, so running a business, as we know, with a 31st of March year end, tying it up to the fiscal tax year in the UK, which is the 5th of April, we know it can be challenging. We totally appreciate that. And as a business owner, you're obviously wearing multiple hats. Admin, finance, HR, IT, obviously the list goes on. So obviously each business has their own unique year end, and I touched that lots and lots of companies have the 31st of March year end just for simplicity. Some I appreciate have 31st of December, 31st of October, lots and lots of reasons for that. So that as many companies set the 31st of March year end for simplicity, I'm going to share, as the 31st of March is approaching, my top tips to make sure that you're presenting accurate information and that you're happy basically to share that information, that you've signed things off, you're happy with that everything in Zoho Books is as you would like it to be before you give it over to your accountant. I know Gina's got some slides on screen, so I will let her share those.
Aimee, I'm not sharing my screen. I'm allowing you to share it. So
no worries, absolutely no worries. No worries.
Yeah.
I can let you share your screen, Gina, because I know you've done that slide deck. So if you want to just share your screen.
All right. Okay.
And then I'll talk through the slide deck that you've prepared.
Yeah. Sure. Definitely.
So we touched on that financial year end there as to the 31st of March. A lot of people have that 31st of March. So moving on to the next slide. So in Zoho Books, what we need to make sure of is that everybody, you've recorded all your sales invoices. And by that, you've raised all your sales invoices to your customers prior to your year end. So what we're tending to find at this moment in time is clients are looking through their order book. What work am I on with right now? What invoices do I need to raise for the work that I've done pre the 31st of March? So it's making sure that you're on top of your bookkeeping, you're raising your sales invoices in good time, just to make sure that your customers have got those. And the reason why that is because if the date of the invoice, say it's pre 31st of March, that does fall within your year end if it's been sent over to your customer. Obviously, if as an accountant, I would need, if you don't raise the sales invoice until April, say, I then have to make that necessary adjustment to bring those into that particular year. So always make sure that your sales invoices are right up to date, that you've raised those for the work that you've done on Zoho Books. And I can just share my screen with you just to explain how to make sure that your invoices are all raised. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, so in Zoho Books, where I'm looking, when you first log into Zoho Books, you're welcomed with the dashboard. So on the sales on the left-hand side, you've got your customers, your estimates. You want to go to the invoicing section, and you want to make sure that any sales invoices are listed on here right up to date for the work that you've done. And you can obviously filter these based on the date anyway, so you should be able to identify those, and you'll also be able to filter it on the invoice number, making sure that all invoices are on there. Similarly, on the opposite side, that is your credit notes. Have you issued any credit notes to anybody that you need to make sure that they're all sat there and they're all on your ledgers, certainly by the 31st of March. So again, raising the sales credit note, you can go onto the credit notes section and I've not raised any credit notes on here, but you can create some credit notes on there if you've got any credits, to send over to your customers. Also, what I tend to identify when I come to prepare people's accounts is when in Zoho, there's a few stages of an invoice or a credit note. You can raise them as draft, and what I tend to find is people are raising them as draft, but they're not then marking them as sent. So I tend to determine these as once they've been sent, they've gone effectively out of the building. So they've actually gone to your client, they've been emailed either via Zoho Books directly, or they've been sent and attached as a PDF as an email to a customer. So just make sure when you're in that invoice that you're actually marking them as sent. So when you raise an invoice, just to demonstrate that, I'll just quickly raise an invoice. I'm sure you're all able to do this. So I'm just going to raise a test for £10 plus VAT. You can quickly save it as a draft here. So many people use this to then view the invoice, which is good practice, view the invoice, but what they're then not tending to do is marking it as sent. So you can send the invoice through Zoho as a PDF or via email. So send as an invoice would obviously populate the email template and then mark as sent. This is if you wanted to download it and you've got your own email template. So make sure that that's done. That is one big thing that I tend to find with clients, that they've raised the invoice, they've sent it outside the building, but they're not telling the software that they've sent the invoices outside of the building. Okay. So moving on to, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Moving on. The next one is once you've raised all your invoices, it comes nice seamlessly onto this one, is make sure that your age receivables, we call them debtors here in the UK, but basically these are customers who you've sent an invoice out to who owe you money. So just to cover that again, age receivables, they're also known as debtors here in the UK, but essentially these are people who owe you money. What we will need to do here is carry out a review in Zoho Books to make sure that everybody that's listed in Zoho that owes you money, that owes your company money, is realistic. What we don't want to do is have a list of people who've owed you money for years and years and years. We want to make sure it's nice, neat and tidy before presenting that over to your accountant. So I'm going to demonstrate how to, where you would go in Zoho to find this information. So I'm just going to share my screen once again. So in Zoho, we want to navigate this time to the reports. There's lots and lots of reports in Zoho. The ones which I tend to use, I've got here saved as my favourites. So I've got little stars on the top. So if you don't already do that, there's a little bit of a tip there. Now, the report that I'm going to use is the AR aging summary, which presents it in a nice summary format. It does what it says on the tin. Or there's the detailed version. The detailed version, I'll show you in a minute, details everything. It's got your date, it's got your customer, it's got the invoice number. So let's just dive into that one, the aging detail. So as you can see, at today's date, I can customize this report to a previous month, a previous quarter, a previous week. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to do today's date, just so at least you can identify Let's pretend that it's the 31st of March today, even though we're on the 4th. So today, I'd like to customize this. This is a pretty important element here when you're reviewing this report. Customize this. I like to see it in intervals of 30 days. That's just my accountancy head. And I want to group it by my customer. And then I want to include my credit notes and manual journals. So when you're always running this report, make sure you're customizing it and ticking those two boxes, including credit notes and including manual journals, and it gives you the total figure of the amounts owed. And the reason why I say that is because if I ran that report without the include credit notes on, you wouldn't be presenting the fair and the big picture. So I want to run that report. It's just showing that Limited owes Ultra Accountancy Demo Accounts £12, naughty person, and then Aimee Hargreaves Limited owes £12 and then a further £900. So in total, you can see there, Ultra Accountancy Demo Account is owed £924 as at today's date, and it gives me a breakdown of which invoice it relates to, the date the invoice it relates to, and I can also nicely jump into that customer and that invoice if I like to do from here. Now, what I'm looking for here is when I touch on age receivables, these are customers who owe me money. Instantly, I can identify that Aimee Hargreaves owes me, an invoice, albeit £12, but from 1,388 days ago. So what we need to do there is I look at that invoice and identify, does she genuinely owe that much money? Why? Is it in dispute? Has it actually been paid? Has it been paid cash, but we've not recorded it on Zoho Books? So I can dive into that invoice from this report by clicking on there. And I can instantly see it's a bag of basketballs which were sold, but I can easily see from there that is that invoice in dispute. What do I need to do with it? So essentially, when we're reviewing our customers who owe our money, who owe our company money, we need to make sure that it is realistic, and that so those people on that list do typically owe us money. If we find that they don't, we need to figure out what we need to do. So if you've got an invoice there, the customer's paid us, then we need to clear that off. We need to find out how that customer's paid us, or is it quite simply that it's a bad debt and we need to write it off? If it's a bad debt, we need to obviously swallow our pride and accept that it's a bad debt and learn from that. Why was it a bad debt initially? Is it something that went wrong? But fundamentally, within the system, we can record this as we can then create a credit note off the back of here. So I'm going to create a credit note. On creating this credit note, the amount will apply to the invoice. It'll mark that invoice as paid. So I'm going to go ahead with that. And I'm going to write it off at today's date. And that's key, really. That would typically, if it's a year end, you'd do this pre the 31st of March. You wouldn't write this credit note off from the 1st of April, and that's important here. So just take note of that. If you are writing bad debts off, we need to make sure that that is dated pre your year end, otherwise it'd fall into the next financial year. So 4th of March, because that's what I'm demonstrating today, I'm going to credit the bag of basketballs sold, and I'm going to hit save. So what that's now done is it's marked that old invoice off as paid, and it's put a corresponding credit note on. I won't go into the intricacies of that's gone back to sales. You will need to present a list to your accountant that says, here's a list of the credit notes that I've entered. They will have gone back into sales. These need moving out of sales to bad debts, essentially, when we're coming to prepare your profit and loss account. I won't go into the intricacies because I could be here all day explaining that. So just to touch back, where do we go to review that report again? If you go to reports, aging details, and then again, customize that report. I customize that report at 30 days. I filtered it by my customer name. You could filter it by currency or salesperson as well. I personally prefer the customer. And then most importantly, tick these two boxes, include credit note and include manual journals, and run that report. So now you can see that Aimee Hargreaves no longer owes me that £12 because I've created a credit note to remove that invoice from my system. So that would now be sat as a debit balance on my sales. So write a list, tell your accountant which credit notes that you've issued that relate to bad debts, and then your accountant can make the adjustment for those. You can quite simply just make a list in Excel. Just pop a list of bad debts, who you've already created credit notes for, and so they then know to make that reallocation. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we can go. Next slide is bank and credit card reconciliations. So a key one, a lot of clients get stressed out when I say reconciliation. I get it. It's a big word. Essentially, all this is checking that the transactions that's on your Zoho Books account. So when I say that is, I'm assuming everybody's got bank feeds set up. Bank feeds being that we have Zoho Books and we've got your bank account, and the two systems talk through a third party app called Token. So those transactions, the bank pushes the information into Zoho Books. You've categorized your transactions saying, okay, this is a customer that's paid me money. I've paid some bills over to my vendors or suppliers. I've paid these expenses. Essentially, on there, that would be a list of all the ins and outs that's happened in your bank account. And we want to make sure that Zoho completely and utterly compares to your bank statements. So the reconciliation is purely a check. And all we're doing is we're checking everything that is in Zoho, that you've categorized the transactions, there's no transactions missing. This is the final. I'd recommend that you do this either on a weekly basis. I mean, I've got some clients who do it on a daily basis, some clients who do this on a weekly basis, some clients who do it on a monthly basis, but I would encourage you to do it on a regular basis, just to make sure that everything is in tip-top condition. So I'm going to dive in now and I'm going to show you how to do a bank reconciliation. So I'm going to share my screen on Zoho, just so at least I can then show you how you would do a bank reconciliation. Zoho Books. Okay, so we go to the banking tab. And now I've got my bank accounts listed here. So I've got quite a few bank accounts. I've got a bank account. My main bank account that I'm going to use here for demonstration purposes is the bank current account. So I'm going to click in there. I haven't got bank feeds set up for obvious reasons. So I've had to manually, because this is a demo version, I've had to manually add my transactions. So what I want to do now is, this is the view of all the transactions that I've manually added through the process. And quite simply, when I go to do a reconciliation, click on the little settings button here, the little cog, and click reconcile account. So you can see the historical reconciliations that I've done on here. And I want to initiate a reconciliation. So if you click this big blue button on the top right hand side, it already pre-populates the start date, so I can't edit that. There's nothing I can do about that because we've already locked those figures down. I'm going to put my end date and my end date balance. I'm going to do it as at today's date. So I'm going to do it at the 4th of March. This would normally be, like I say, either on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, whatever suits you. I guess it depends. It all comes down to how many transactions you actually go in and out of your bank account each day. So I am going to quite simply pick up, hypothetically, the balance from my bank statement. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to pick up the balance that's on my bank statement at the 4th of March. So I've just 35,808.02, and I'm going to hit. So that, just to clarify, the end date is the line that I'm going to draw up to, which would typically be my year end. I'm then going to pick up the same balance or where I've drawn that line up from my bank statement. So you will always, when you're doing this process, you will always need to have your bank statement to hand. Start reconciliation. And what Zoho's going to do here is it's going to say, well, I've got my opening bank balance, and then what have I received in and what have I received and what have I paid, so in and out during that particular period. So from the 1st of February up to the 4th of March, what transactions have gone in my bank. And I would have my bank statement to hand. And as I see the transactions present on my statement, I would tick them off. So I see that one, I can see these, and it's quite simply down the right hand side. And what we're aiming to do here is tick every single transaction. Now, if you're really quite confident that you're happy, every single transaction, you can use the top select all, or quite simply go and tick the transactions as you see them on your bank statement. So I've made this fit. This is not always reality, I'll be honest. Sometimes what you may find is that there's some transactions not on Zoho. You will need to go and put those on. I'm just going to save and reconcile that for later. So I'm just going to demonstrate how you would do that. You could go into your bank and you can manually add the transaction, be it an expense, be it a transfer between accounts, be it a VAT claim, a transfer, or a customer payment, whichever you'd identify. This transaction's on my bank statement, but it's not on Zoho Books. You do need to put those transactions on. And this is the whole purpose of a reconciliation. What I tend to find also is that more often than not, there's duplicates. If somebody's manually added a transaction, but they've also popped it onto a bank feed. These are things which happen all the time. I see this every day, day in, day out. So it's not something you're doing wrong particularly. It could well be that you've just ticked something or not matched it. That's all. So if you were to add a expense, say we've got a missing transaction, fill in the fields as to what it is and attach your receipts and save that. You can then go back into the reconciliation, which I've saved as in progress, and then tick the transaction it would present. So by going out, saving and reconciling later, going back into your bank, adding the transactions in, it will then remember, you've got a saved reconciliation. I now want to tick that transaction. And the aim of the game really, once we know our closing bank balance because we picked it up from the bank statement, the aim of the game is to really get this difference down to zero. I know I've done that really, really quickly. This does take practice, I will be honest with you, but essentially, if you've got your bank statement in hand, you are ticking, you know your opening balance is right because you reconciled it last time. You're ticking as you see the transactions present on your bank statement, you know, and you've got your closing balance in right, that difference should come back to zero. If you identify that there's some duplicated transactions, what I mean there is that there's some transactions on here that's not ticked. We do need to sort those out. What I don't want to see when I see a set of accounts is that I get a client's Zoho Books, I log in and I've got lots and lots of unreconciled transactions. I don't want to see that. I'm going to give you an example of where to find any unreconciled transactions so you can sort those if you like. So you would go back into your banking, you go to your bank current account, and just down here you can view what's unreconciled. Now I've no unreconciled, and that's what I would like to see if you send your stuff over to me, that there are no unreconciled transactions. If there are unreconciled transactions, once you have reconciled it, that's where to find it. So just to go back over that, banking, click on your bank current account, and then unreconciled, it would normally be filtered to all, but then filter it to unreconciled. And that's what I want to see there. That's the magic for me, that there are no unreconciled transactions. If you find that there are some transactions that are still there and you're really not sure how to get rid of those, effectively it's a reversal of what you'd already put in. So say, for example, you'd been to the post office, you'd already categorised it, you'd reconciled it, but you've got a duplicated transaction. That's going to affect your profit and loss account. It's also going to affect your bank balance in Zoho because you've got it on twice. We need to reverse that as the expense. And I'd go through and I'd work your way through those. We need to do the opposite of it. Now, it may well be that you need to speak to your accountant to ask, how do I sort this out? Can you help me? And they will be able to, or if anybody's got some questions on how do I get rid of these, I will be able to give some instructions on how to do that and how to reverse those, because it is a little bit of a funny, tricky scenario to do that. It's not just a case of going in and deleting. Zoho won't let you. Okay. So going back into the bank reconciliation, I'm happy that it's saved. I've got one in progress. My difference is zero. Zoho will not let you reconcile if it doesn't come down to zero. I wouldn't let you either. So hit reconcile and nice green reconciled status. And what I would always say is, if you can, attach your bank statement to the reconciliation to demonstrate, so your accountant can see. You don't have to and fro with emailing the statement over to your accountant, which can be quite annoying. Obviously, you know, we've got to be very careful with data that's being shared. There is the facility, so use it and upload your file. If you've got, you can use it by PDF, you can do Excel, you can do a CSV. So upload your files, or just quite simply drag and drop. And what that will do is it'll store it in there, so your accountant can log into Zoho Books and then view that bank statement and verify that balance that we've reconciled to just there. Okay, so similarly, we would do that for all bank accounts. So all bank accounts, all credit cards, make sure you're reconciling those. As accountants, we want to see that you've reconciled. If it's not reconciled, I think this is a key thing here. If it's not reconciled, we can't verify the balances. So we would say there's either reconciliation work that you need to go back, we'd hand it back to you, or we'd say this is additional work that we would need to carry out for you. It is a key task. So make sure your accountant's happy, reconcile this on Zoho Books. So yeah, reconcile all your bank accounts, all your credit cards. Again, moving on, it would be the petty cash and go cardless as well. Very similar process. I've got 0 petty cash here, you can reconcile petty cash. Lots and lots of people don't believe you can. Gone are the days of the petty cash, Tim, where people used to have a float in there. But some people do still. I have got a couple of clients, like hairdresser clients, like premium hairdresser clients, that have got a float. They have got a petty cash in, and they do count cash at the end of the day. So you quite simply go in, reconcile. I've never reconciled it on here, so I'm just going to put the 1st of January 1980. So it's going to pull up all transactions. So that's a tick there. If you've never reconciled it and you need to reconcile it, use the date 1st of January 1980. That's going to sweep up all the transactions that you've got in your system. I'm going to reconcile it to the 4th of March. I know I've not got a balance. If you did have a balance of, say, £4.28 or whatever of any cash that you've got, you would enter that. Similarly, you'd count your cash from your tin. That's your verification as to how much cash have I got, and does Zoho replicate. So treat your cash tin as you would your bank statement. That's your physical source of how much cash have I got. Pop that amount in there, and that's what you're reconciling to. A lot of people think, well, what am I reconciling to here? You've not got a bank statement. Your bank statement's effectively a cash tin. So start reconciliation. Again, a little bit of a tricky one. Hopefully you've got a little bit of a cash book. You know, tick all those, it comes down to 0 and hit reconcile. Your accountant's going to be happy if they can log into Zoho Books and see that your credit card, your bank statement, your cash, your go cardless, everything's reconciled. That's important. So moving on. So I've touched on other reconciliations, so Stripe, Go Cardless, PayPal, all these accounts. If you have got PayPal, if you have got Go Cardless, remember to attach the statements once you have. So at least us as accountants have got the confirmation that there is a physical source of other documentation that supports that reconciliation that you've carried out. Next slide would be purchase invoices. So I touched on the fact that you have to make sure that all your sales invoices are okay. That's easy enough to do because you're in control. So your sales invoices sending out to your customers, and your credit notes, making sure that they're all on. On the flip side, we've then got your vendors, also known as your suppliers. So these are bills. Have your suppliers given you all the bills? We need to make sure all bills have been added onto Zoho Books and that they are predated the 31st of March, which is your year end or whatever your year end would be. So make sure all your bills are entered onto Zoho Books prior to your year end. Again, raise them, make sure that they're on, and any credit notes. Have you got any credit notes that you're waiting for? Now, this is a key one here. If you've got any credit notes, they need to go on the system. What I've seen a couple of times that, we've got statements and we've verified from some statements for some of our clients, and there's a whopping refund due back in terms of energy bills. This is a good indication. Can I chase that money? Is the money sat on the table? Have you got a credit note that you're not going to offset against any invoices? These are big things. Cash flow is tight and cash is king at the moment, but make sure that any money, if you've got a credit note, can you ask that supplier for that money back rather than offsetting it against a future invoice? You've not got money sat on the table there. So just touching on that again, put all your bills on from your vendors, put all the credit notes on there. And if you have got a big credit note that's due back from a supplier, make sure you ask for that money back if you don't foresee that you're going to be able to offset that against a bill anytime soon. Otherwise, it's going to take a while. They've got your money. Get it back. That's all I would say. Moving on to work in progress. So, bit of a technical one here. We've raised our sales invoices. We've raised all our sales invoices to our customers. What I tend to find is some clients will do some work that will overhang the year end. So what I mean here is you may be sat here on the 4th of March knowing I'm on with a job at the moment and this job may take me until the 4th of April, for example, but you're not going to invoice that customer until the job's done and it's signed off. So say it might be a week later. So let's say for this example, we're sat here on the 4th of March. You're not going to raise that invoice until the 4th of April. This is what we as accountants call work in progress. And essentially all that is you've not recorded the sale on Zoho until April. So April is in your new financial year, assuming that your year ends March. That's the cutoff. So Zoho's not going to show that that invoice is in this year. And your accountant's not going to know that either, unless you tell them. So what I tend to do is, and I can give you this example if you want to reach out to me, I've got a spreadsheet, which is really, really simple. Spreadsheets work really, really well at this point when there's a different cutoff. It would be wrong for you to raise that invoice in Zoho. But what you could do, there's two options. You could raise it as a draft, but don't send it to your customer. So your accountant can identify it's on there as a draft. That confuses a lot of people. They don't like that, sometimes. The other alternative is make a list of any sales of jobs that you're on with right now that's going to go over your 31st of March year end. So these are people that you're on with, work that's on with right now, 31st of March year end, but you're not going to raise the invoice until April. So let's fast forward. You're now in April, May, June. Your accountant's sat doing your books, doing your year-end accounts, and you've given him a list of the customers who you've been working on. We call it work in progress again. And he can then verify, that's that invoice. That's the invoice that they've raised for the work that they've done prior to the year end. So that does need to be brought in as sales. So just as a snapshot, a set of accounts must show the work that you've done in that year. So we as accountants, we want to see that those accounts reflect that. So it's really relative to the work that you've done. So again, just to recover that, if you're on with any work now in March, but you're not going to invoice that customer until April, your year ends in the middle of that, the 31st of March, your accountant wouldn't know. Without that sales invoice being on Zoho, that invoice would have to be predated as March, but you're not going to send it to your customer. So make a list on Excel of the jobs that you're on with right now and what stage you're at up to the 31st of March to make sure that they can bring those sales in. It is a bit of a technical one, and I totally get that. So if anybody does need to reach out for clarity on what work in progress really is and how you would do that, or even if you want a template of that work in progress document, I've got a really simple Excel document that I can share with you. On the flip side, there is what we call deferred income. The accountancy jargon, but in a nutshell, deferred income is you've raised a sales invoice on the 4th of March. Okay, let me demonstrate, or even the 29th of February. For this example, I've raised a sales invoice for a day rate on the 29th of February. My year end is the 31st of March. I'm not, for this example, I'm not going to do that work until April. In this scenario, that sale's in the wrong year. We need to technically tell your accountant my sales will be overstated. And with those sales being overstated, you're going to pay tax on that sales invoice in a nutshell. So what we need to do is, again, we need to say, here's an invoice, 29th of March. My year ends at 29th of February, sorry. My year ends at 31st of March, which is the cut-off. That sale's in my year, but I'm actually not going to do the work until April, so it needs taking out. Again, provide a list of all the sales invoices that you've raised prior to your year end. I find this is the easier version because you're working the other way. You've raised the sales invoice. The sales invoice is on Zoho, but it's technically incorrectly presented in the wrong financial year. So we need to tell your accountant, this is deferred income. It's work that I've not done. Remember, the accounts need to show the work that you've done. So that sales invoice would show that you've done that work, but it's incorrect. I'm not going to actually do that work until April. So we would need to take that out. Again, I know this is really quite technical. So we've got the work in progress terminology, invoices that you've not yet raised. So the invoices are not on Zoho Books, but you've done the work, but your accountant doesn't know that you've done that work. And then we've got deferred income, which is the other side. We've raised the sales invoice. We've then got our year end, but the work's not going to be done. So we've just got to move it. But if your accountant doesn't know these things, we're not mind readers, sadly. So you do need to tell us. Again, if you want that schedule, I've got a very simple work in progress and deferred income schedule that I can share with you in Excel. I know many people are familiar with Excel. Aged payables. Moving on to aged payables. So if you remember, I touched on making sure that your vendors, so your suppliers, you've put all your bills on. So again, going back into the purchasers this time. So vendors, the suppliers, they're the same thing. So what we're doing is making sure that all our bills are on Zoho. So I've got Ultra Accountancy demo account owes these people, this test vendor, and 123 Reg and Amazon, we owe these people quite a lot of money. So what I want to do is I want to run a report that's going to tell me who do I owe money to in a snapshot. So again, we want to go into reports, and this time we want to go down to the payables section, and we want to go to payables details. I'm going to filter it again. I'm going to customize it. I'm going to customize it today. So again, this would be pre your year end. So today, by bill due date, I like to see it in 30-day slots. That's again just my accountancy eye. And I want to view it by vendor. So that's going to categorize it by each vendor. And similarly to when we processed this report on the receivables, the customers who owed you money, we want to tick these little boxes. Again, this is really important. And this is how I identified a client who was owed quite a lot of money because they've got a big credit note on their system. They'd not seen that. So I was saying, look, you've got money left on the table here. We need to get that money back. So by ticking those two boxes, we're going to make sure that we've got sight of all these things. We've got the net figure as to who we owe money to. As you can see, 123 Reg is 1,960 days overdue. That may well be a duplicate. I may have categorized it on a bank, but also put it down as a bill, a purchase invoice. So I need to look into why. Is that duplicated? Look through. Is it duplicated, and what do we need to do? Again, if we find that it's duplicated, we've marked it through the profit and loss account as through our bank, but then we've also put it on as a bill. We can quite simply go into it and create a credit note like I showed you on the sales side. Very easy. Zoho would then mark that off as paid, and you would obviously have your corresponding credit as well. So that's an easy way to tidy things up. So you can see there, the demo account owes £16,359.83. We've got to ask ourselves, have we got a statement from our suppliers? Does this figure agree to what the supplier is saying that we owe, who we owe, and how much we owe them? If not, have we got bills missing? Have we got some credit notes missing? Have we got some invoices showing on here that are not actually paid? The supplier says we've paid them. And that's where we're going to identify, have we got duplicates? Have we put them on through the bank? And then have we put the bill on as well? This is what we really need to look at. And this is our opportunity to really tidy our system up. You can view this report in the summary. What I tend to find is a lot of people prefer this in summary format. I do personally. And I look again at my aging summary, age payables summary, customize it based on 30 days. And again, most importantly, tick your vendor credits and your manual journals. Again, really, really important. And then hit run report. So what you can see there in summary is 123 reg, and I owe them the 90 days. And you can drill down then. Why do I owe them? What is that? And drill down straight into that bill. I've not got an attachment or anything. Have I got an attachment? Yeah, I've got an attachment there. So you can then view that bill. Why is it? And then do some investigation work. So that the purpose of that, running that report is it who I actually owe money to? So these are also known as creditors in the UK. So people who you owe money to, essentially. So payables, people who you owe money to, also known as creditors. So lots of accountancy terminology around those, but that's, receivables, who owes you money, and they're your debtors, so customers who owe you money. Payables is who you owe money to, who you're going to pay, I like to think. Creditors, people who you owe money to. Business mileage. Lots and lots of people hate this section, but make sure that you're recording your business mileage. I use an app. I won't dig into this, but I use an app that captures my business mileage. It's brilliant, but make sure that you're entering all your business and personal mileage onto Zoho Books. Some people pop it onto Zoho Books. There is a mileage area that you can add your expenses onto and your mileage quite simply by going into here and recording your mileage. Obviously all your settings and things are in there, but you can pop your mileage on. So what I went into purchases and expenses, and I went on new, and there's a little tab across the top and record mileage. So I'd enter the date the trip took place. I'd enter who was responsible for that trip. You can obviously add your employees in there. If you're a director, add yourself as an employee. What vehicle type was it? And this is quite important, really. If it's a car, if it's a van, it's a motorcycle, a bike, obviously the mileage rates apply for those. The distance that you travelled, enter the number of miles. This won't let me fulfill this because I've not put an employee in here, but it automatically calculates the first 10,000 miles are at 45p a mile. Anything thereafter currently is at 25p. And then you can say how you paid this. Was it through employee reimbursement? Was it through your drawings? What I like to do personally, and what I advise my clients to do, just makes it a little bit more easy and visual. Just going to leave there once you've saved that. I like to tell them to add a bank account which is for your personal and business mileage, so you can easily identify how much does that company owe me. There's a bit of a tip there. So all you can do is you can add a bank, set yourself up like Aimee, business mileage, personal expenses. You can type. Sorry. Okay, and hit save. And what I would do there is I'd add my transactions in there. I tend to find that it's much, much easier. What that does is you've got a little mini bank account, the bank account of Aimee, and this then sits in that bank account so you can easily identify how much that company owes me. So just to demonstrate for the purposes of mileage, how would that work? Click on new, go to mileage, we'd set your employee up. Obviously I'm not set up in here. I put my 10 miles in that I travelled, and it's paid through. You can then set it up that it's paid through that particular bank account. So you would need to set that up as that bank account and then hit save. And that would then record the transaction in there. Similarly, expenses, if you've bought some stationery, if you've bought any kit that just forgot to have the business debit card with you, quite simply record it as you would a normal expense. So I'm just going to do some. Let's have a look. I bought a mouse, for example, a £5 mouse. The 0% VAT. Attach your receipts as you normally would and hit save. So just to demonstrate, that's now showing in Aimee's little bank account that company now owes Aimee £5. Bit of a tip there, my clients really like that you can visually see. You're not got a separate Excel spreadsheet having to track how much do I owe. It's all contained within Zoho. Your accountant would like that too, because it's not an Excel spreadsheet. Everything is contained within Zoho. So make sure, tip there, all your business and mileage is popped through in there. If you don't want to use a Zoho mileage tracker, pop it down as an expense, quite simply. You can go down and I think I've got one set up. Yeah, fuel and mileage expenses. You do your calculations already. £4.50 mileage, no VAT, and then quite simply hit save so that you can manually add your mileage, or you can use the inbuilt mileage tracker for Zoho. So there's two different ways there. So you can now see, we're building up a balance that company now owes me £9.50. I quite like that tip, and so do my clients. VAT returns, moving on to VAT returns. We need to make sure that all VAT returns, before you hand your records over to your accountant, that VAT returns are submitted. I don't want to see VAT returns not filed and start preparing a set of accounts and then the client say to me, my VAT return's not been submitted. So again, go into your VAT filing area. Obviously, this is only relevant if you are VAT registered. Your VAT return, this is just for example purposes. This is not overdue because you can see there any eagle-eyed. It was due on the 7th of February. That's purely because my quarters are not aligned with the 31st of March year end on here. So just because I've not filed this one, you can review your VAT return and mark your VAT, submitted through Zoho Books. Make sure that that's submitted if they're coterminous for the year, and make sure they're submitted before sending this over to your accountant. The number of times that I've gone back to a client and said, you didn't submit your VAT return, so can you do your VAT return and then hand it back to me? Yeah, it's just one thing. Make sure it's signed, sealed, review your VAT. A tip on how to review your VAT return is in the reports section. If I can find it on here, is the taxes. I like to have this as a favourite, the VAT calculation summary, and you can drill down into your VAT returns so that's populating what's on my VAT return for that particular quarter, and you can drill down. I've not got anything as such in there for now. Moving on to the next slide. Make sure you're compiling your loan statements and any agreements that you've incurred this year. So if you've got any loans, if you've got any mortgages, if you've got any new agreements that you've entered into during this financial year, so any hire purchase commitments, any new loans, any new mortgages, even existing loans and mortgages, anything that you have, any agreements, statements, get these all in hand. What we don't want as accountants is to say, oh, I've identified you've got a loan. Can I have your agreement? Can you send me this statement? Can you send me this? This is all time from our perspective. Be a good client and give your accountant this information. Obviously, they will love your accountant will love you for this if you can have all that. I mean, one key area that I do try and get clients to upload them to is, can you see this document area in Zoho? You can create files and upload them in there and say to your accountant, I've uploaded them. The agreements are all in Zoho already. Create files, get them in folders, upload them into Zoho. So again, we're not to-ing and throwing with emails and statements and lots of things. So yeah, a key tip there, any new loans, hire purchases, mortgages, any commitments that you've got financially to any providers, make sure that you've got all those. And yeah, if you want to keep them in Zoho for future reference yourself, pop them in the documents area, create a folder, and drag and drop them into Zoho, and then tell your accountant all mortgages, statements, agreements, everything. Think of this documents area as your filing cabinet. I'm conscious of time, so reviewing your assets. So reviewing your fixed assets. Fixed assets are essentially computers, desks, chairs, vans, vehicles, you name it. These things that are going to generate you future income. There's some things that you're going to buy now, they're going to generate you future income in a sense of it's something that your company uses. So a van, like I say, a computer, these will be on your balance sheet. So what I would like you to do is go onto your balance sheet, and there's an area for your fixed assets. So here we've got furniture and equipment, 2,500, and I can click in there. These are all historical ones, but you can review, is there any new ones in that particular year? Have I got my vans? Are they all listed in there? I've bought a new van this year, is it there? I've bought some computers. These are the places that you need to go. If they're not there on the balance sheet, chances are they're on your profit and loss account. And this is your opportunity to go through your profit and loss account and reclassify those as assets. So if you do find, what I tend to find is a lot of computer equipment just goes to IT. So review your IT account, review that, can that go as an asset? And are we presenting these assets correctly? So that's your chance to review your profit and loss account. Have I got a van in motor expenses, for example? Have I got IT things in your profit and loss account that need to actually be identified as an asset? So your accountant can pick those up and make sure you're getting all the allowances that's relevant and applicable for you. Assuming you're a limited company, we need to review your director's loan account. And this tends to typically freak people out. But essentially, a director's loan account is money that you've put into your company and that the company owes back to you. Hopefully, it's that way around and not the other way around, that you've loaned money off your company. So what we need to do is, I've not got an option here. I've not set up a director's loan account, but your director's loan account, strictly speaking, should be in your current liabilities area, assuming it's repayable within 12 months of your year end. What we need to do, let's just pretend that this PAYE creditor account is the director's loan account for the purpose of this. What we need to do is we need to make sure any ins and outs in this particular period does reflect the money that you've invested in your company and any money that you've also extracted from the company. It's pretty key here that you're happy. Any expenses that you've incurred, anything that this does actually represent the value that company owes back to you before you hand it over to your accountant. Yes, they will make some adjustments, I imagine, for use of home, any other things, but yeah, make sure that does present that you're happy, that any loans that you've put into the company, any money that you've taken out of the company, that it accurately reflects on Zoho Books. That's a key area. And that's something that we always go through with our clients. Reviewing your profit and loss account. So these are the reports. Once you've done all this was the nice, you've reconciled your bank, you've done your VAT return, you're happy that you've done your work in progress and your deferred income that I touched on earlier, you've got your bills in. Does my profit and loss account look accurate? And you present this on your year to date. So you customize that on your year to date, run that. You can customize it and compare it with last year. I'd always recommend that you do. Compare it with the last year. Where does it look accurate? Is it realistic? Is it reasonable? Are there some variances that I need to tell my accountant about and you need to share them? Why is advertising so high? Why is my fuel and mileage so high? And just at least you've reviewed this and you're checking this to say to your accountant, just to let you know, Aimee, fuel and mileage is really high because this year I've chosen to go out to see my clients instead of having Teams meetings with them. I've made it as a conscious effort. So that's why you'll see why fuel and mileage tend to find people's invested in Google Analytics or other sources, to assist with advertising and marketing. Tell your accountant so they're not looking and then asking you. Tell them. Similarly, review your balance sheet. I know I've just touched on your assets, but you've got your bank account. Does your bank account accurately reflect what's on your bank statement? is your stock listed accurately? Are your fixed assets reflected accurately? I've touched on those. Are all these liabilities, accounts payable, is that who you owe money to? Do all these, do you owe taxman that PAYE credited? Does everything look realistic? So that's me in a nutshell, a quick whistle stop tour of the top things that I would look for, in Zoho Books before you hand things over to your accountant. I have got a checklist that I will share with you. I'll pop that now in the slides in the Q&A section, and then pop that in there. So just bear with me. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I'll pop that in that Q&A. Presented from my side, that you will be able to view. So has anybody got any questions? I know I'm conscious of time, but if anybody's got any questions. Nothing in there as such. Anybody got any questions? If you want to pop them in there now. I think we have. I'll just leave it another minute or so. So what I've done is I've popped that my slide deck, which you can use. Feel free to download it, and then we can certainly, if you've got any questions or anything, if there's anything that there's a lot of information that I've shared there. If anybody does have any questions, certainly you can come back to me. Feel free to reach out. I've got my details on screen there, and also reach out to Zoho Books as well. Okay, so somebody just asked a question. You did not add VAT to the mileage example. Is there a reason? So really good question. Not added VAT on the mileage. So it's a real funny calculation. It's not just quite simply going to VAT and, or when you're recording your mileage to then claim the VAT on it. It goes on the engine size and the CO2 emissions. So don't, whatever you do, go in and claim VAT on your mileage just from recording that in Zoho Books. That is key. There is quite a technical calculation onto what you can actually claim VAT on that mileage based on your CO2 emissions and your engine size and your type of vehicle. So certainly ask your accountant, can I claim the VAT back on my mileage? Generally speaking, if you're doing a lot of mileage, that's the time when you would be looking at reclaiming VAT on mileage. Otherwise, it's a complex calculation that is, if you're doing 100 miles here or 100 miles there, chances are it's probably not applicable or relevant or even material to be able to reclaim that. So really, really good question there. I didn't click VAT on that mileage transaction quite simply because there is a technical calculation to do off the back of it, taking into account your type of fuel, your type of car, the CO2 emissions, etc. Has anybody else got any questions? Obviously that link's in there, so do take a look at that checklist that I've presented. If anybody wants any clarity on anything that I've said today, please do shout out. Do fixed assets purchased need to be put in both fixed assets and purchases? Really good question. No. What they need to do is when it's a fixed asset, if it's, for example, a computer, a van, machinery, it has to go in one. So it wouldn't go as if it's a purchase, that would go in your profit and loss account. That would be incorrect. If it's an asset, the definition of an asset is something that you buy that's going to buy for use within your business, that's going to generate your business future sales. So I'm not talking about stock here. I'm talking about a computer that I use here at Ultra Accountancy. That's an asset to me. I'm using that machine and that machine's going to enable me to generate future sales. It's going to enable me to do webinars. It's going to enable me to do things because essentially I'm brain and laptop and Wi-Fi. That's my business. So a fixed asset, if you're buying a van, I don't know what type of business you've got, but let's give an example of a van. It wouldn't go through as purchases. It wouldn't go through as motor vehicles. That would be identified as a fixed asset. If you're going to use that van to drive things around in your business, to take things from A to B, that would be a definition, or by definition, a fixed asset, and that would need to go on your balance sheet, not your profit and loss account. So you go onto your balance sheet, go into the fixed assets area, perhaps have a chart of account set up separately that's got van or vehicle expenses, not expenses, sorry, vehicles and cars, pop it in there, and yeah, it'll present on your balance sheet then, it's not a profit and loss account item. Let's see if we've not got any further questions. Has anybody got any further questions? So thanks, Janet, and thanks, Darren, for those questions on there. Really good questions. I think we've got any more coming through. We've got some shy people on here today. Otherwise, I'm just really good at explaining things. Lots and lots of people are scared of speaking to their accountant and do think that, oh, what should I be doing? Year end is quite a daunting task. Have I put things in the right place? Hopefully this webinar's, been able to demonstrate that it really isn't scary. Reconciliation's the big word that people are scared of. It's not scary. All it is essentially is a check that Zoho is representative of what is on your bank statements. So that's all. Think of it as that. All you're doing is checking what is on the system, agrees completely. The fact that if you have got unreconciled transactions or things that are not on, we can sort that out. Don't worry about that. It's easily fixed. But the aim of the game is that you're presenting stuff to your accountant that's accurate. If you've got lots and lots of unreconciled, it's not accurate. We as accountants would go, well, we've got to sort this out. So don't think we've got any further questions coming in. You're all shy.
All right, Aimee, I think everyone would reach out to you in that case if they have any further questions. Yeah. So all of you, all the attendees can download the deck which Aimee has presented on the link. You can find it in the Q&A box. And yeah, I hope this webinar has been helpful, and Aimee has put in a lot of effort in coming up with this checklist. So it'd be great if you could shout out to her in case if you have any doubts. And you can always reach out to us on the details that are present on the screen. And thank you so much, Aimee, for this webinar. It was wonderful, hearing you explain each and everything about Zoho Books. And in that case, I think that's one of the reasons why none of our attendees even have that much questions, because you went into the nitty-gritties and explained completely in depth. Yeah, thank you so much once again, and thank you all the attendees for attending this webinar. Stay tuned for a lot more. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll have a great day.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Aimee.
Thank you.